old fart here today. I mean, really old looking.
Yeah, but you got your tooth in today, so you don't look too bad.
Yeah, just got to wait another month or so and get the real ones back in.
It's a long process, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But the good thing is, as we get further into this thing, I can eat more and more of what I used to eat, that type of thing. So I guess that's where it goes, right?
Yeah.
So how was your concert? We were talking about that just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, so Saxon, one of my favorite bands. The by evidence by the fact that this was my 10th time seeing Saxon in concert. They were one of the first bands that I remember seeing here in San Antonio. Van Halen was the first in 1981. But there's just a special, unique relationship between San Antonio and the band Saxon. I can't explain it. Like we were talking about, it started back in the 70s with a DJ named Joe Anthony, who used to play records on 99.5 Kiss. And he would just play bands that he liked. But the funny thing was, nobody else was playing them here in America. Um, Back in the early mid 70s, Judas Priest, not many people had heard of them, but they were really big in San Antonio because Joe Anthony played them. Rush, they got their big start between Ohio and San Antonio by DJs in those two areas playing their music. Um, Saxon, Mahogany Rush, UFO, just Legs Diamond, a band that virtually would have never had any career had it not been for San Antonio.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's,
it's just, I don't know. It's just it's hard to put your finger on it as to the why, but
you think it might
it's
be
just
the culture of San Antonio? I mean, it's such a diverse culture. I mean,
yeah, it could be. It's just so hard to put your finger on the pulse of why certain bands really made it here, but never really made it anywhere else. I don't know.
yeah. Well, it's like what you talk about radio station. I remember the big BAM, WBAM in Montgomery, Alabama. Of course, it's country and western, but
Right?
they didn't play all the old guys, you know. They played little bit of everything, and best of my knowledge, I can remember they were probably one. That radio station was probably one of the bigger and more popular radio stations in Alabama at the time.
Oh yeah, I believe that.
Yeah,
Especially either there or Birmingham.
yeah, and they they played a little bit of everything, and I think that's probably what made it popular because, you know, you're talking about the for me the middle to late 50s and the early 60s. You know, there's a lot of changes taking place in the United States at that time. You know, you're coming out of World War II and in Korea and those kind of things. The cultural changes and kind of goes back to what you kind of talk about with the San Antonio group too. I would think, you know.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned even World War II. The wearing shorts or blue jeans or t-shirts, those are all outcomes of World War II based on the fashion. Because particularly, sailors, they wore, we call them blue jeans, but they call them dungarees, and
Yep.
their white t-shirts, that's what they wore on the ship. And that just translated from them coming back home and dressing like that because that's what they were used to and it was comfortable, and how it just became part of our fashion now.
Oh yeah, just the culture phenomenon. You know, uh, things out of the 50s and 60s that just happen. Go back. I was looking at a couple of pictures of in the last few days from, from my memory and stuff like that. Looking at your mom and how with her mini skirts and hot pants and go
And
go
go-go
boots.
boots and the big tall hairdo.
Yeah, and all that hairspray she used to buy and stuff like that. But that's just, and that's good there. That's a cultural changes that just makes life fun and makes a lot of memories, I think. And when you go back and start looking at things and talk about things, you know.
And then you just mentioned something that you and I had talked about in the past, cultural changes, and country music. Loretta Lynn, the things that she was singing about during that era was like unheard of.
Oh yeah, and criticize tremendously about bringing up like the pill. That's
Yes.
probably one of the most controversial songs in history because no one talked about it at the time. It was just taboo, you know. But you got to give those people credit for stepping out there, you know. And I think that crosses all genres of music. When you go back to the groups, particular groups that you like, I mean, they were doing stuff that nobody heard of, and everybody criticized it because people in you know my mom and dad's generation, they had their set things, and all of a sudden you're having a cultural changes, and it's kind of funny. Your mom and I were kind of talking about the other day how she grew up, of course, been in the military and traveled a lot, versus where I grew up. It was just a little small town, and what we did, yeah, it's was the one that we made it this far. So
Yeah, it's amazing what comes out of these historical significant changes in time, and not just this her singing about the pill, but a woman becoming a star in a male dominated industry.
oh yeah.
And to be that brave and chart that path because she had achieved a certain amount of success and she wasn't going to shy away and not talk about something that was important to her.
Yeah, the other day on my on Facebook, I get these music clips. And I was watching this one, it just happened to pop up. It was on the Grand Ole Opry. It was Loretta Lynn, and she was talking about her women friends on from the Grand. There was like 9 of those women there, and they all did a little short version of their more popular hits and stuff like that. You know, when you think about the Grand Ole Opry, this was filmed a few years ago, that particular segment, stuff like that. But back in the day, in the 50s, 60s, and especially in the 50s and 60s, and probably in the early 70s, just unheard of. You
Yeah.
know, but those those people persevered, and they made a lot of money and made a lot of people happy with their music. You know,
And then speaking of the country music industry, you look at artists like Willie Nelson who left in Nashville to get away because it was so prescriptive in the music industry. They wanted you to look a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way, and sing specific songs. And he, Hank Jr., and Chris Christopherson, all of those guys, well, Waylon Jennings, you know what I'm saying? They all moved away from Nashville and started doing their own kind of music,
oh
and
yeah,
which became outlaw country. Why was it outlaw? Because it was going against Nashville.
exactly. It's going against the norm. But you know what? That's what life's all about, changes. We got to have those kind of changes. And if we want to succeed in life, we got to have new thoughts and uh, new ideas.
And what's so funny about Willie Nelson is he moved to Austin, which was like a hot spot for a bunch of damn long haired, dope smoking hippies.
Oh, yeah.
And he embraced their culture and they embraced his country culture. And he, out of all of that, you got the Willie Nelson music from that mid 70s on that influenced that outlaw country. You had that rock sensibility, I guess you could call it, out of country, which was very twangy, which mom hates that twangy, whiny country.
Yeah. Oh, Lord. So, and then how old is Willie now? 90 what?
Uh, Probably 90. Let me
Yeah,
see how old. Let me see how old he is.
I think he's probably more than 90.
91.
91.
He
And
will
still,
be 92 next month.
and still going strong. I remember the last time that we saw him, I think it was at Floors.
Yeah, we saw him both times we saw him twice at Floors, and then we saw him once at the Majestic.
Yeah. Uh, but the last time we saw him, he ended up sitting down in the chair for a while,
Yeah,
which
that
is,
was at the Majestic. Yeah.
yeah.
It's just hard for him to, the power of, the lung power to sing. And then, the age.
So, and that goes back. Still one of my favorite of all time musicians is Don Williams, and we saw him
Yeah.
at, I think, at the Majestic. But
Was it? Or was it at the Tobin Center?
it could be one. It's either the Majestic or the Tobin. I can't remember which one. But and he was up in age, and his health was as good then, I don't think, as it has been. But I really like his music. It just resonates more with me probably. And and he's from not too far from here, down in Corpus Christi, Port Lavaca, in that area.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we saw him at the Tobin Center
So
in 2014.
wow, that's been 11 years. Time goes by fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, and speaking of Willie Nelson, remember he played in Ray Price's band.
Oh yeah, back in the day. See, and there's another guy. I mean, you think about his music. He changed some things. He kind of was on that edge, if you were stepping out a little bit, doing some things just a little bit different. And I think, what, 5 different generations. He has hits in 5 different generations.
Yep,
Wow.
he played bass in the Cherokee Cowboys for Ray Price.
Yeah. And I think we saw Ray Price at Floors, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So those are good times, and I'm looking forward to. We're going to back Floors in the last weekend of this month.
And Ray Price, he spent time with Hank Williams, Senior.
Uh-huh. Yep. Yeah, he was in his band, right?
I don't know. I think Hank Williams took on Ray Price as a musician, but I know the two of them spent some time on the road and they
Yeah,
wrote songs together.
it's amazing.
Yeah, he was a protege of Hank Williams, not the other way around.
Yeah. Then a lot of these stars, these country and western, or even in the youth genre, they get started with other people's bands or associated, and then they move on to their own thing.
Yeah, sometimes. Ozzy Osbourne got his start with Black Sabbath. They kicked him out because of drugs and alcohol, and he ended up becoming a bigger star than Black Sabbath ever was when he went solo. Sometimes when things happen for you that are bad, it ends up being for the better.
Yeah, probably because you're able to step out and do what you're good at, and not being held back or hindered because of somebody else. Uh, that's just like everything in life. Sometimes you just got to step out there and take that chance and be smart about what you do.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. If you're going to step out there, you got to be smart. You got to be careful how you do it. You got to have a method to that madness.
Yeah. Look at God, I just call him Hootie. From Hootie and the Blowfish.
Uh-huh.
Rock singer who then Darius Rucker, who then goes out and does country music and does it quite well.
Oh yeah, it's really good. I mean, when you think about country music, you think about Darius Rucker, you talk about Charlie Pride, and a few others that have crossed over into groups that normally would not be associated with, and they're really good.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think Darius Rucker is still around, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, he's still doing that country thing. And
Yeah,
you can tell it's not a gimmick or a joke or just something that he got into to, see if he could continue to be famous or whatever. It's obvious because you grow up listening to certain things.
right.
Like I grew up listening to country and pop music on the radio in Japan, all I heard was top 40. So that's probably where I get my love of that pop rock from that era. And then country, and then you move to Georgia, and then you start to hear, the southern rock bands that are out there. Then you move to here in Texas, and then I really got exposed to rock and roll. Not so much on the country, but it was always there. And it's just I my musical taste just run the whole gamut. I like everything just about, except opera. Opera and show tunes are probably about it.
Well, it depends on what part, I guess. There's some of it that's they're they're really good. I can't remember her name, Maria. I don't remember her name now, but she was an opera star. But she was good. I could listen to her. Uh, she just something about her voice that I liked.
It's funny you mention opera, or we got on that subject. There's a woman, I cannot remember her name, but she's got a YouTube channel, and her show is called The Charismatic Voice. And she's an opera singer by trade, and very, very schooled in the science and art of singing vocals, And so on in her YouTube channel, her fans, comment and whatnot, and they're always like, "Hey, check out this singer and that singer." And she's really delved hard into the hard rock and even metal, and some hard metal singing. And she comments on it, and she loves it because she looks at it from a singer's perspective, and she doesn't like to hear the studio tracks. She likes to watch the live video so she can see how they're singing and breathing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The mechanics of it all. And she really loves Iron Maiden and Bruce Dickinson because the way he sings,
Wow.
the power, the projection. And you should check her out. Really interesting. It'll give you a different perspective on the music that I listen to.
And I think that's what makes things really good, and it makes it continues to grow. Music, how it continues to develop or evolve, things like that occur, and people start talking about it, and it starts affecting different generations.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so what's on your next venue to go see?
You and me and Mom and Brenda are gonna go see Blackberry Smoke next Saturday.
Yeah,
And then just a few short days later, I'm gonna go see a band called Down.
call what?
Down.
Okay.
Just Down.
How did they come up with that kind of name?
I don't know. But it was started by the singer of the band Pantera and a couple of other musicians and other bands, and they were all out of the New Orleans area.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like a super group project band, if you will.
Okay.
So the singer from Crowbar, he plays in it. The singer from Corrosion of Conformity, he plays in, and I can't remember, the rest of the members, as well as Phil Anselmo from Pantera fame. So I'm gonna go see them just a few days after Blackberry Smoke.
Who else you got coming up?
Oh man, I got to look at the calendar now.
Uh-oh. You're getting old if you don't remember that kind of stuff. You're supposed to
Tell me
remember that
about it.
kind of stuff.
At the end of April, we have Trisha Yearwood.
Yeah. I'm looking
What
forward to
else?
that calendar. I think that's going to be, she's a pretty diverse singer as well. I think she she does some of the old stuff, does it really well, and the contemporary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next week, on the same day, because we got Trisha Yearwood on a Thursday, and then the next week, Brenda and I are going to go see a band or a singer named Morrissey. He was the lead singer for a band called the Smiths, who broke up, and then he's been doing his own thing ever since. And then about 2 weeks after that, I'm going to see an old original OG punk band, or it came out of that punk era, The Damned.
Okay.
So 3 in May. I don't think I got anything else in June.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I do. I got Grand Funk Railroad.
Okay.
You might like Grand Funk Railroad.
I've heard them. I've heard some of their music. They're all right. I don't remember too much about it, but the name's familiar with me, so it means I've listened to it a little bit.
Got nothing in July or August, I think. Nope, no concerts in July, August. I don't think I got anything in September either. Let me see. Nope, nothing in September. I think my next one is after that is October, I think.
Okay.
But I don't even have it on the calendar. Crap. What band is it? It's UFO. Let me see. No, it's not UFO. It's Michael Schenker.
Okay.
Let me see. Michael Schenker. When is it? It's in October, October 10th.
Okay.
Yeah, but I
Well,
don't even. Wait a minute. I've got it on the 11th. It's the 10th or the 11th of October.
okay. That's a good day. That's just a little before Yunker Ray's birthday, so be something to celebrate for him. He'd probably like that kind of stuff. You know how Ray was.
Oh, yeah. So, do you guys got anything plans or big plans for anything?
No, I'm just getting ready to plant some grass. I've wasted a whole lot of money on planting sod for St. Augustine grass. So I'm going through now trying to figure out what kind of Bermuda grass or fescue or Zoria grass or Behavior grass I want to plant in the backyard, have something to grow and stuff like that. Well, that's when you start looking into that kind of stuff, there's a lot to it. I'm tired of planting pallet grass because the ground in the backyard that's not the best dirt and stuff like that. So I'm going to do grass seeds and try to get that to grow. And boy, when you read the reviews on it, I don't. Makes you wonder why the hell you're going to do it anyway. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. So, but Bermuda grass will grow pretty quick, or it spreads pretty quick.
Yeah, but it needs a lot of light.
Right, a lot of sun. So that's what I've been looking at. Boy, that stuff. I was looking at some Tifway 419 Bermuda grass. Well, it's like $60-something for a pound.
Really?
Yeah. So then I looked at fescue, Zorias, and Behavior grass, stuff like that. So probably next week I'm going to get started going out there and trying to break the ground up a little bit and soften it up, and hope we'll get some rain in the next few days. And in fact, for San Antonio, I was looking at the weather for tonight between 7 and 9 tonight. 7 and 10 is a good chance of some rain, heavier, some gusty wind, and possibly hail.
Really? Well, I know we could use some rain though.
Yeah, and then next week, couple of days. So I'm hoping we get ahead of this game. And my thought process is do it about the end of this month, first part of April, and hope like heck we get a lot of April showers.
Yeah, we definitely are behind the curve on the rain.
We're in extreme drought here in San Antonio, so but something to do anyway.
Well, everybody needs to quit moving to Texas. That's the biggest reason why we don't have a lot of water.
That's true. Stay where you're at. Be happy there.
Exactly. Don't move to Texas. We're closed.
Yeah, close that border, right?
Mhm.
All right, before we leave, we've been talking about military history. I printed out some stuff of the 9 of the most legendary heroes in the U.S. Army.
Did I
Get your,
make the list?
get your thoughts on them. All right,
Did I make the list?
you made the list.
All right.
First one is General George Washington.
Well, yeah, that's
He stands out because later commanded the forces and been the president. But then this next one's going to really surprise you. I'm sure you probably heard of it. Sergeant John Lincoln Clem.
I cannot say as I've heard of
He
Sergeant
changed
Clem.
his middle name from Joseph to Lincoln sometime before he tried to enlist in the Army at the outbreak of the Civil War when he was 9 years old. After being rejected he made it to the 22nd Michigan Volunteer Infantry, who sawed down the musket he later used to kill a Confederate officer who demanded his surrender. He was promoted to sergeant, became a national hero before being discharged in 1864. He returned in 71 and rose to Major General before retiring in 1915.
Wow.
Of course, this next guy, you're going to remember him, Sergeant Alvin York,
Sergeant York, World War One.
World War One. He enlisted as a conscientious objector.
That is correct.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story if you read about him.
Yeah.
His commander, I think, gave him a weekend pass to go home while he was in training to think it over if he wanted, because I think he wanted to be a minister.
Yes.
And he was dead set against killing, and ended up being a major hero in World War One.
Yes, he was. He captured 132 German soldiers almost single-handedly in World War One. Then another one, Sergeant Henry Johnson. He was a Harlem Hellfighter of World War One.
Okay.
During a fight in the Argonne Forest, Johnson and a buddy came upon attack by a dozen Germans. He held them off with grenades and rock fire until it ran out of ammunition. And then he finished the job with a knife. I think we talked about him a little bit last week or week before last.
We might have.
Yeah. The next one, I know you go to remember him, is Sergeant Artie Murphy.
Oh, yeah. Love Audie Murphy.
Yeah. There's a little guy that they had a hard time getting in because of his size.
He did.
The most decorated troops in American history. He was one of the 5 most decorated. He was initially too small to enter, enlisted at the Pearl Harbor, had to fight to get into the Army. Once in Europe, though, he engaged in a series of heroics, including jumping onto a burning tank to hold off waves of infantry and 6 enemy tanks.
He is a badass.
Yeah. And then the next one is going to be a real badass, General George S. Patton.
Old blood and guts.
Old blood and guts. Leading tanks, and of course, General Douglas MacArthur. I guess depending on what books you read about MacArthur, whether you like him or don't like him, or what he was, and stuff like that. But
It's, you have to be an asshole to be effective, I think, sometimes.
Yes, you do.
Because you can't have people trying to dissuade you from what you know in your heart to be right.
Well, not only that, Patton, MacArthur, what do they have in common?
Flamboyant, outspoken.
And didn't give a damn what people thought.
No.
They
were, for the most part, yeah.
They were great generals.
They were great tacticians.
And I've read a lot about both these people, these generals, and the one thing that really has stuck out, the people who served under him respected him.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the most important factor of any leader. If your troops respect you, they'll follow you right into the battle and don't think twice about it.
But, the exact opposite of George Patton was Omar Bradley.
Yes.
complete opposites, and yet the troops loved Omar Bradley as well. I don't think they so much loved Patton as much as they respected what came after the battle, that they were able to succeed.
Right. And the difficult things that in the Battle of the Bulge, I mean, he turned that around. But, great leaders have to make decisions. And most of the time, those decisions aren't popular, but they have to be made.
So the Battle of the Bulge, that was the last big push for Hitler's army, the Third Reich. And it's called a bulge because they were two sides coming together, and it created a bulge. And so the 101st Airborne was completely surrounded by the German army. The general in charge of that asked the 101st general if they wanted to surrender. And his response was one word: nuts.
Right.
And Patton had to be called off of his advance, and in 24 hours change course and go north without stopping. I think he had to march over his troops 100 miles, and they had to pray for air cover. And it was wintertime, over clouds, overcast, I should say. And yet a miracle, there was air cover. I mean, the clouds parted and they were able to get air cover for the artillery, for the armor to go in there and save the 101st Airborne.
Yep.
But that was the beginning of the end right there for, not the beginning. The beginning of the end was D-Day. And that was pretty much the nail in the coffin, was it the Battle of the Bulge. After that, it was pretty much over.
This next one, I've never heard of him until today, is Corporal Tibor, T-I-B-O-R, Rubin, or U-B-I-N. He served in the Mauthausen Austria concentration camp and joined the U.S. Army to show his appreciation for them liberating him. In Korea, he held a hilltop on his own for 24 hours while his unit retreated using the road he was guarding. When he was finally captured, he refused officers by the Chinese to send him to his native Hungary, instead staying as a prisoner, stealing food for others. And this picture of him with George H. Bush, I don't know if you can see it or not,
I can see it.
The Medal of Honor.
Wow.
So, and this last one I got is Colonel Lewis Millet. You'll like this guy. Let me see. Can you see him?
Yep, I can see him.
Yeah. He joined the Army in 41, but got tired of waiting in the U.S. to invade someone. So he deserted to Canada and got himself deployed to London. When the Americans entered the war, he jumped back under the Stars and Stripes and twice saved me and his unit from certain death before his desertion charges caught up with him. He was convicted and then promoted to second lieutenant within weeks. Now you're talking about a badass, right? When career rolled around, he was an infantry captain, received a Distinguished Service Cross for a bayonet charge he led on February 4, 51, and a Medal of Honor for another bayonet charge on February 7th. He later served in Vietnam and retired as a colonel. Some pretty heroic guys when you start thinking about the military and what they did and all the things like that.
I would agree.
Yeah.
You about ready to wrap this up, old man?
Yeah, it's getting close to that time. I'll probably be getting a note from your special aunt there that saying we're taking too much time here. But anyway,
You got it.
Stay cool. I love that hat.
Thanks. I'll look for a flat cap for you.
All right. We'll see you next weekend.
All right. Y'all take care, everybody.